Well, I rented the RF 24-105 f2.8 and its power zoom. We're gonna talk about, is it worth this price in this size in this video? Let's get into it. Well, hey, what's up? My name is Tony and I'm a filmmaker and photographer in the St. Louis area. I rented this lens, I got it Friday and I've had it for a couple days. I've done 3 or 4 different shoots now. And so I wanna talk to you about just how does this gigantic thing work with something like the R5C. Now, this is my main camera these days. I've also got the R5 Mark II, but when it comes to video, this thing is king. I just absolutely love it, and I can flip it over to photo, and I have full capability there too. So I do love the R5 Mark II, and we'll get a video about that soon, and I'll talk to you why I picked one up instead of another R5C, even though I've got multiple of these. That's what we're shooting on right now. And today, though, we're talking about this RF 24-105. Now, if you are familiar with this channel, you know how much I love this lens. This is the RF 24-105 f4, and this thing lives on my camera. I actually had to dig it out of my bag off of the R5 Mark II just so I could show you in comparison the size difference. Now, there's a big size difference, and that's one of the things that we're gonna talk about in this video. Why did I choose to rent this 24-105 if I've already got the f4? What are my thoughts? Why did I do it? And what do I think about this power zoom? Now, if you're not familiar with the 24-105, this lens costs like 3,000 bucks, no joke. Then you can spend another $1,000 to get this power zoom. So why would anybody do that? Well, we're gonna talk about that. The first thing though is I wanna talk to you just a little bit of experience with this 24-105 f2.8. I stuck this on my camera on Friday and went into a off-road third-party shop that installs lift kits and fixes things, and so I use this for photos just so I could get the feel of it. How does it feel on the camera? And honestly, it's gigantic. It's really big for just taking photos, and it felt a little awkward, especially when I'm slinging it on my shoulder with just a camera strap. But with that f2.8, you just get beautiful photos, and in fact, I'll usually shoot with my 70-200 quite a bit. And the thing I like about that is it's a little bit smaller. It's not an internal zoom like this one, but I like just the size that it can get to when it's hanging out on my shoulder. So this guy, it takes great photos. Obviously, you've seen him before. I'll show you a couple photos. But the real reason that I rented this one is because I had a couple jobs coming up yesterday, which was Monday, and then today, that I was gonna need the power zoom. And I thought this would be a perfect opportunity for me to try out to see how do I like this power zoom. Couple of facts about this lens is it's f2.8. One of the things that I kind of struggle with is the 82mm filter size. Now I have the, what we're shooting on right now is the Freewell K2 filter. And what's nice about this filter is you can actually pop out the rings and put in different sizes. Most of my lenses, the RF 70-200, the 24-105, the 50mm, what we're shooting on right now are all 77mm, which is really nice. This is an 82mm filter ring. So all of a sudden, my filter system is all messed up. But fortunately with that K2, I can just pop off the ring and put on an 82mm filter and it works just fine, which was okay. But then if I wanted to use any other lenses, I didn't have that 77mm setup anymore. For me, that's a little bit of a pain. Now, if I were to invest in these, the 24-105 f2.8, the 70-200 f2.8 Z, the 135mm, those are all 82mm, which would work really well. That's just a little thing. The other thing that was interesting for me is just this weight distribution. Now, it does come with a detachable lens mount. I didn't ever use that. I just stuck it on my R5C and had it mounted on a tripod, and it seemed to work all right. The balance is a little crazy. Fortunately, I'm using a monitor on top of my R5C, and that kind of helped balance it out on a tripod. The first shoot that I did yesterday was in a history museum. It was pretty much just a talking head, but I wanted to add in just a little bit of motion. And so when I did that, what I did is I used this zoom and it worked out okay. One of the things that I want to talk about with this power zoom is it's basically on or off. And so you push zoom in and it starts zooming. You push zoom out and it starts zooming. And so what's nice is you've got a lot of runway with that 24-105, but if you have one camera like what I had for the talking head and the shoot today, which I'll talk about in a minute, which was a really interesting setup. So make sure you stick around for that one. If you've only got one camera, as soon as you hit that zoom, it's a little jarring. And there's this little button right here on the bottom right here that you can zoom, you can adjust the zoom, how fast it zooms, but it's on or off. And so it'd be really nice if there was some sort of like speed ramp that you could add on where if you push it, it slowly starts to zoom in. And then when you push it back, it slowly starts to zoom out. There's none of that feature in here. So if that's what you're looking for, sorry, it's just not there. It's really nice if you start your zoom motion and then you can cut to this camera. But if it's just a one camera setup, you kind of notice that little jerk. What I ended up doing was pushing it really slow so that I could get a nice, smooth, slow zoom in. But you can kind of, while it's zooming, you can adjust it, but you gotta be real touchy with it. And so for me, it pretty much did what I wanted it to. So that was the museum shot. It was just a talking head. It was for an event that's coming up in February, but the speaker wasn't gonna be able to make it. And so they wanted to film her in the museum, which was really cool. And the museum was closed. And I was able to walk around and kind of get the back side of all of the exhibits and all the things. But for the most part, it was an easy shoot and it worked out decently. Now, this morning, I was at, this place called Undivided Wealth Experience, which is just a space that they rent out to different people. Today it was like a C-suite event where it was all, you know, CEOs and people like that, and they hired me to handle the Zoom side of it. So I hooked my laptop up to Zoom and I connected my R5C, which was really nice. It's just a USB-C cable, and then I had this camera on there, and that was our entire Zoom. Now what I did for audio, which was really kind of cool, is I used the wireless Pro setup. I merged the channels together, put that in, and had that as our audio. So we had a handheld microphone, and then we had a lapel for the keynote speaker. And so that was audio. And so it was a really nice setup, but it was a like almost 3-hour shoot. They wanted me to re-record the entire thing, and then we're gonna chop it up later for little segments that they need. So this was my lens. I wanted to make sure that I could get like the small groups, breakouts, things like that, but then get a decently tight shot on the keynote speaker. And so I used this power zoom to zoom in and zoom out instead of manually twisting it. And so I feel like this is a great setup for that. Once again though, I just wish that it had just a little bit of a zoom, you know, a speed ramp in and a speed ramp out. Is it worth $1,000 to not twist my hand? Boy, I do not know. I wish that it was a little bit more smooth. When you got moving, it's fine. It's just that initial jerk when you're starting and you're stopping. I like the fact that you can control the speed of the zoom. It would also be really nice if you could move this power zoom to the focus ring. If there was 2 different spots on these where you could either use it for focus or you could use it for zooming. But that's just another feature that I could live with or without. So I'll show you a little bit of the footage that we caught, but for the most part, I like this 24-105. One of the major problems that I have with it is though it doesn't fit in my bag nearly as well as this little f4. Now, the difference is you get a little bit more blurry background. It keeps your ISO just a little bit lower, but I found that for the most part, I can shoot on this with a 3200, which is native for the R5C, and I'm still good to go. The size difference is just exponential for me. It fits in smaller bags better. It fits in a road case better. It fits in my backpack better. This guy, it takes up an entire lane. in my road case, which is fine, and you just have to adjust for it, but I stuck it with the power zoom in there, and it ate up a whole row. Whereas with the smaller f4, I find that I keep that on my camera more, and I just keep it in my bag, and it's with me, and I've got all of that versatility of the entire focal length of 24 millimeters all the way to 105. And when you're at 105, you get plenty of blurry background. So for me, gosh, if you're just getting started out, do not overlook this lens. I get so many comments to people say I'm worried about not having enough bokeh, or I'm worried about not having enough light, and I very, very seldom run into that. And so what I'll do, say you're getting started out, buy this 24-105 and then pick up like a 50 millimeter f1.8, and that'll get you by for 99% of what you need. Then you can invest in the lenses that you specifically want. Now, if you're a pro video user and you're constantly finding yourself in situations like I was this morning, one camera plugged into a zoom or whatever where you're not cutting, this is a decent, versatile setup. It's probably the most versatile lens that I've ever used. I've used a couple cinema lenses that are like 17 to, I don't know, what is it, 300 or something crazy like that are really versatile. It has a built-in, extender on there, things like that. But for the most part, this is just the most versatile lens. And if you don't have to worry about travel, like capacity, if you've got plenty of space in your road case, if you've got plenty of space in your bag, I don't know if I would take this on a trip to Africa. I'd probably take my 24-105 and then a small prime lens just to be able to handle the low light when I need it. This lens is just so big. Most of the time I'm using the travel 30 liter with a medium sized pack. I'll show you a picture of that. And that's kind of my set for when I'm doing every day. I keep a couple different things in there. I keep a camera with a lens, 70-200, a couple extra things, a Rode Wireless Pro microphone. It all fits in there pretty well. If I were to move to this one and get rid of my f4 version, I just don't think it would fit nearly as well. I'd end up having to leave something behind. And so for an everyday carry, I just don't think this is optimal. The other thing is I use a 10-liter sling from Peak Design, and this thing just does not fit in there very well. You can fit a R5 Mark II and a 24-105 f4 with a 70-200 perfectly in a 10-liter everyday sling. This thing, it's really big. You can't leave the camera on here. And if you want to try a 6-liter, you're out of luck. It doesn't even fit in a 6-liter sling. So those are my thoughts. This thing is big. Is it worth it? I don't know. If you're a pro video user and you use some of these extra features, then yeah, it probably is. We haven't talked about the variable aperture ring. I usually don't use it. I'm usually shooting pretty wide open anyways. But if that's something that is enticing to you, you could do that. I like the fact that it's got little teeth on there so that you can hook it up to a ring if you want. Once again, I just leave it on A, which is auto, and just kind of ride it out. But there's lots of great features about this lens, but for me personally, it's just gigantic. And if I buy this one, I kind of have to buy the 70-200. Then I could swap it out on the Ronin. I balanced this on the Ronin, it's just fine. I would have to really find myself using this and then the 70-200 quite a bit. For me personally, I'd rather pick up a 24mm f1.4 that they just released and a 50mm f1.4 so that I could swap those out. I'm curious what they're gonna do if they're gonna release an 85mm, but that's a different video. So, end of the day, this is a beautiful lens. It did exactly what I needed it to. And if I found myself in that situation again, I probably would just rent it for the $100. I'm probably not gonna buy this lens, and I'm definitely not gonna buy the power zoom. But for certain circumstances, it finds itself very useful in my kit. All right, so if you haven't already, and you're curious about the R5C, I've got a video comparing it to the R5 Mark II. Make sure to go watch that video.